Welcome back to another Squid Games video. As the theories settle down, there is just one more big one that I need to talk about. Well, maybe two. I love the theory that this player, the father, survived and didn't actually get shot somewhere fatal by this guard, and number 11 is going to protect him. But I'm going to be talking about the other huge theory today. There was talk of how cool it would be in Season 3 to see Gi-hoon and the rest of the players successfully overthrow the games, and instead they take the VIPs and force them to play in the games instead of the players, kind of as punishment for making 456 people die to the games each year for the past 35 years. But just what if the VIPs are already playing in the games? Just like we saw in Season 1 with Ilnam himself, the creator of Squid Games, playing as player number 1, and in Season 2 with Inho playing as number 1 yet again, there are special players in the Squid Games. And we see throughout each of these seasons how they both had failsafes set up so if they happened to lose a game, they wouldn't actually die. And in the last video, I briefly mentioned a couple of the theories suggesting some of the players from Season 2 could actually secretly be VIPs as well. And that got me thinking, what if each year VIPs are always playing in these games? Just like Ilnam did, merely to experience what it's like to play in these children's games once again. Because when you're a kid, there's no worries in the world. You go to school and run around with your friends all day, you can be as silly as you want and scream as loud as you want, and no one will look at you funny because you're a kid. But as you grow up, it becomes more and more uncommon to do those fun things you once spent your days doing as a child. Work consumes you, life's financial elements changes who you are, and these VIPs, I'm sure, are just as rich or successful as Ilnam was, and most likely at some point felt the same way as he did. Bored with life, needing something new to give them a sense of joy or that childlike fun they haven't had in so long. Even with the things they showed us just in Season 2 alone, I genuinely think it's entirely possible that some of these players in these games aren't just average players, but they are actually VIPs. This scene right here. Gi-hoon is in the middle of the rebellion, he's marching his men to storm the castle, and we see right here at this point, the guard seems to lock eyes and recognize the front man. Of course he gets shot immediately after before he gets to say anything, but what if it wasn't his face he recognized, but it was his number? What if he saw he was number 1 and all the guards were given a list of special players they were not allowed to kill, and of course number 1 is top level priority, do not kill. Think about it. This season they revealed that the guards too are random people the games recruit who are struggling with life on the outside. And in Season 1, if Ilnam himself, the number 1 most important person in the world of Squid Games, was going to play in these games, you know they emphasized it so much to each and every guard not to let player number 1 die. But if all the guards really are just people they recruited off the streets, I highly doubt they're going to tell all of these people that player number 1 is the person that created the Squid Games. He's the number 1 CEO, top of the ladder, because what if one of the guards held repressed feelings against the games for enslaving them in this work to pay off their debts? If one smart person picked apart what they're doing here, what's to stop them from taking out the CEO? If anything, he's much too important to let all these random guards know who he is. It would be much more safe for his sake to keep his identity anonymous and not reveal any information that would give any guards any crazy ideas. And instead, they were just given a special player list, and on this list, prioritized was a couple player numbers who were special players who were not to be eliminated. That way, Ilnam's identity is safe from any disgruntled guards, but they all still know not to shoot him if he happens to fail a game. And this is the same with Inho. We constantly see how protective the games are with all of the workers' identities. And not just when they're around the players, but also behind the scenes, behind closed doors, when it's all just the workers. I think this is another easy way to keep everyone equal and emotionless. There's a lot less problems when it's strictly a job and nothing's personal, so I can't believe that the front man would reveal himself to all these guards and trust these random people not to shoot him. What if he mistreated one of them in the last games and they're still holding a grudge over it? Who's to say any of these guards aren't mad at how he treated them? And what a better way to get back at him now that they have a gun and he doesn't. Again, it would be safer for him as well if the guards didn't know that he was the front man, but simply that he was a special player that was to be protected. And that's why the guard that realized that was so shocked, that a special player would be behind the uprising, killing the guards and trying to overthrow the games. I'm sure they know to some extent of the VIP's existence and the other large sponsors' involvement to run the games. This would be just as equally shocking as realizing the frontman was doing this. Because what if there is a list of special players that the guards are instructed to not kill if they lose? We saw how easy it was to eliminate, in quotation marks, a player while keeping them alive. And what if there's more than just player number 1 on this list? I saw in the comments of the last video when I mentioned this theory, which go watch it if you haven't seen it, it was one of my favorites. But I saw people were going back and forth over a scene from season 1 saying that when Junho was looking through the records for the games that there wasn't a player number 1, suggesting that each year the player number 1 spot is reserved for a special player. They will be inserted whenever they want, seeing that Inho simply skipped red light green light in season 2. I wonder if it's his favorite game. Each year we see him set his own little ambiance, like a girl taking a hot bath, putting in the bath bomb, turning the lights down low, putting on some soothing music, and last but not least, finding something to watch on your iPad. Except his guilty pleasure is seeing 200 people get killed off in a children's game. But I didn't remember, so I went back and looked at the scene of Junho looking through all the records, and it's true. In one shot, when he looks through the 2020 participant list, the first page seems to be player number 2, which is interesting. I would really love this theory to be true, but a second earlier, he did go through the list for 1999 and you could clearly see player number 1. And he had all the same information as any one of the other players has. So while I don't think player number 1 is a VIP every year, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to join and pick out which number they want to be for themselves. We can see that some of the VIPs like some numbers better than others.
What convinced you to bet on number 69?
Oh, it's such a beautiful number!
Plus, having lucky numbers is very common in gambling, and that's what these VIPs are doing. I think there's a high probability that some of these players are secretly VIPs playing alongside the normal players. Whether they lost a bet and that's the reason they're playing, or because they've watched the games for so many years that they're confident that they could beat them themselves, I think it's entirely possible that this year's games and all the years prior have had these special players. If you enjoy the Squid Games theories and fun content I've been working hard on, go hit that subscribe button and tell me about your favorite theory in the comments. Only 5% of the people that watched the last video were actually subscribed, and I'd really love to see that number go up. If you want to support, I'd really appreciate the sub. Now let's get back to the theory. I love the idea that 149 is a VIP. We mentioned it in the last video, and she just seems like such a sweet old lady, and I love the fact that she snuck a knife into these games. Just like Ilnam's failsafes that ensured his survival in season 1 and Inho's failsafes that made sure he was safe too, I think this is just an extra failsafe for 149. She did mention that she survived the Korean War and used to play Ganji with bullets, so it's possible she's got some experience in hand-to-hand combat, making her a deadly little thing with that knife. I would love to see her step up and get a chance to use it in season 3. The games are extremely thorough as we see them going through everyone's belongings when they get to the games, removing any contraband that they're not allowed to bring in. I'm sure they checked Gi-hoon extra thoroughly or were tipped off about his tooth tracker from the captain, but still, they would have no problem taking away this hairpin since even on its own it could be considered a weapon. But if the guards had a special players list, maybe they let the VIPs keep what's in their pockets on purpose. Or what if she just didn't even go through this whole process? What if she just showed up to the games and got changed herself in a dressing room? It was also interesting to see how upset she got at her son once she realized he was in the games when she was in the games herself. Almost like she was playing in the games willingly as a VIP, but she as a mother was genuinely upset and mad that her son was here. I mean, it would make sense. If she was doing somewhat well in life, maybe she never realized how much financial trouble her son was really in. I love how protective they are over each other all season long, especially at the end when Gi-hoon is asking for volunteers to fight back. Just as her son is getting the courage to join, she stops him, and she keeps him here with her, safe from the fighting. I'm sure if she is a VIP, she has watched countless players get murdered for standing up to the guards and doesn't want her son on the end of unnecessary incoming fire. If you remember after Marbles in season 1 when Ilnam is about to be eliminated from the games, he gives Gi-hoon his number 1 jacket, which may have been assigned to the frontman and the guards to favor him in the next game. We see out of all the players in the bridge game, with statistically the hardest rate of survival out of all the games, Gi-hoon has the best chances of survival out of everyone. He was the last player to go in the bridge game. Since he was the last number, I'm sure they could tell the players to go from smallest to largest number, or the other way around, based on Ilnam's special sign of giving his jacket to Gi-hoon. I wonder if for some reason 149 fails a game in season 3, if she could give her jacket to her son to protect him. Because right now, theoretically, she's on the special player list and he is not. And unless she gives him her jacket, he's in danger of permanently being eliminated. Just something interesting to think about. Also, in the end, after the rebellion and the guards rush into the bunks, she convinces player 120 not to open fire on the guards. Not only does she know that by now the guards will be organized and have the upper hand, but I'm sure she too didn't want to be caught in this unexpected crossfire. Because while these VIPs might want to play in these games, I don't think they want to die in these games. It was also pretty interesting how quickly she was to start bossing around the guard to let her use the bathroom. For how quickly the guards are to shoot players who don't cooperate, she has no fear bossing these guards with guns around until they finally agree to let her leave, when technically she's not supposed to. And finally, I also thought it was really interesting when they were playing Mingle that the one time she was separated from her son, she almost didn't try to fight to stay with him. Like she thought that this is it, this is where I separate from him, and I haven't got to give him my jacket yet. And I'm sure she knew she would be safe even if she didn't make it into a room, because she would just run out of sight of the other players and a guard would pretend to shoot her. But I thought it was super interesting that out of all the people, Inho would be the one to save her. The front man himself. How convenient. I'm sure the front man knows the VIP's true identities, but I'm not so sure the VIPs themselves know the front man's face. She might just not know who he is, and that's why she was so quick to chew him out when he mentioned her son. Now, moving on to the next possible special player is number 100. Yup, it's just 001 flipped. Who would have thought? This man single-handedly kept the games going all season long. Not to mention that he plays through each of these games pretty much fearlessly. But every single time anyone ever thinks about trying to stop the games, he is the loudest player telling everyone to keep playing. Just one more game and just a little more money. Being 10 billion won in debt is a crazy feat. That's almost 7 million US dollars. While this could just be a backstory for his character he made up for the games, what if he made a 10 billion won bet on the last Squid Games and lost, and this was just part of his punishment? He's played pretty flawlessly so far, but I would keep an eye on him. It seems like he's chosen a character to play similar to who he is as a VIP in real life. Someone who's been quite successful financially and is very money focused. What if he made a bet with another VIP, or all of the ones that came out and watched last year's games, that he could win the games himself? What if he has to win all 6 games to win a bet of 100 million won or something crazy, and that's why he's been pushing so hard to keep playing these games? I wouldn't be surprised if after 30 years of Squid Games, the VIPs are always finding new ways of gambling and betting on them. Because while Ilnam seemed to play the games to experience the childlike fun one more time before he passed, it seems like player 100 is going through these games simply trying to complete them all. Interesting theory to think about. Now, moving on to the next special player, number 388. This is the one that I would think is a bit more far-fetched because of how young he is. Most of the VIPs are much older, but I guess it's not impossible that someone as young as him became the CEO of a massive tech company or something. But the theory for this starts with player 388 being 100% absent from the entirety of episode 3. I don't know if you watched the last video, but I spent 12 hours combing through episode 3 frame by frame, looking through all the players' numbers, hoping to find the real player 1 to see if there was someone Inho replaced after that game. And I wrote down all the numbers I saw, all of them. And 388 was never to be seen in any of these shots. Even the moments before the game, he was nowhere to be found. Whether it was because he showed up late or he was simply like Inho and just didn't want to play in this game, he didn't show up until the beginning of episode 4. And suspiciously enough, really close to when Inho comes over and befriends Gi-hoon. And out of the 365 players that are left, there is such a small chance that he would come over and befriend Gi-hoon's group randomly. I wouldn't be surprised if he recognized him from the 2021 games and wanted to meet him and play beside him. Not to mention his name that he chose literally means huge tiger, and we know how much the VIPs love their large animal masks they wear. And just like if Inho's team lost in the pentathlon, the guard simply would have shot everyone else in the room, it would be extremely easy to do the same thing for 388 since he was on the same team, protecting him from permanently being eliminated. And then in the end, at the rebellion, it seems like he was so scared when they were being shot at. Maybe him being a Marine in the tattoo was all just his character's backstory, and that's why he was so scared. He didn't sign up for being shot at. He just wanted to be a player in the games. And once that shootout happened, he realized he had gone too far and was in too deep. He saw his opportunity to get a breather and left. And that shot of him looking down at the walkie-talkie of the other players calling for help and him just staring at it, you can't tell me that doesn't look sinister. And if he was on the special players list, they weren't supposed to be shooting at him that closely, so there's no way he's headed back into that mess. And that's the real reason that he didn't return with the extra ammo in the end. Tell me what you think of this theory of multiple VIPs playing in the games, and if you'd like to see a video on Thanos that I've been sitting on, or the father surviving and not getting shot by this guard. I will see you in the next one. Peace.